My dad demanded 75% of my lottery winnings for my adopted golden brother because he deserves it more. I gave them a reality check. Hey Reddit, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here we are. I'm still processing everything that's happened over the past month, and honestly, I need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind completely. This whole situation has been eating at me, and I figure if I can't talk to my family about it, I might as well talk to strangers on the internet who will actually listen. I'm Liam, 28 male, and I have an adopted brother named Tyler who's 26. Before anyone jumps down my throat about adoption, let me be crystal clear. I have absolutely zero problems with adoption itself. What I have a massive problem with is how my parents have treated Tyler like he's made of spun gold and unicorn tears, while treating me like I'm something they scraped off their shoe and forgot to wash away. Tyler was adopted when I was 2 years old. My parents had tried for years to have another biological child after me, but it didn't work out. They went the adoption route, and honestly, that's beautiful. I'm genuinely glad they wanted another kid. What I'm not glad about is that from the moment Tyler entered our house, I became the backup child, the spare, the one who existed solely to make Tyler's life easier and more comfortable. Growing up, the difference in treatment was so blatant that even family friends would comment on it. But my parents always had excuses ready, lined up like soldiers. Tyler needs more attention because of his rough start in life. You're the biological child. You don't need as much reassurance. Tyler's going through something. Be understanding. It was always something with Tyler. Always an excuse. Always a reason why he deserved more. Let me give you some concrete examples so you understand the level of favoritism we're talking about here. These aren't exaggerations or misremembered childhood grudges. These are facts that I've carried with me my entire life. When I was 10 and Tyler was 8, we both wanted to take karate lessons. The dojo was offering classes twice a week, and both of us were super excited about it after watching some martial arts movie. My parents signed Tyler up immediately, paid for the whole year up front, bought him all the gear, the GI, the belt, the protective equipment, everything. Drove him to every single class without complaint. When I asked if I could join too, they said the family budget was tight and maybe next year. Tyler quit karate after 3 months because he wasn't feeling it anymore. Moved on to the next thing. Next year never came for me. When I brought it up again at 11, my dad told me I'd missed the window and should focus on school instead. When I was 12, I wanted a bike. Not a fancy one, just a regular bike so I could ride around the neighborhood with friends. My parents said bikes were expensive and maybe for my birthday. Tyler got a brand new mountain bike that Christmas, top of the line. When I pointed out that I'd asked first, they said Tyler was smaller and needed a bike more for exercise. I never got that bike. In high school, I busted my ass to maintain a 3.9 GPA while working part-time at a grocery store bagging groceries and stocking shelves to save for college. I worked every weekend and most weeknights after homework. Tyler barely scraped by with a 2.3 GPA, spent most of his time playing video games in the basement, and had never worked a day in his life. My parents didn't push him to get better grades or get a job. They said he was finding his path, and school isn't for everyone, and that they didn't want to pressure him. When I got my driver's license at 16, my parents gave me a list of rules. I could only drive to school and work. No friends in the car. Home by 10 p.m. on weekends. Any violation meant losing driving privileges. When Tyler got his license at 16, he got his own car, a used Honda Civic that my parents bought specifically for him. No rules, no curfew. He could drive wherever he wanted, whenever he wanted. When I pointed out the double standard, Dad said I was building character, while Tyler needed independence to grow. Guess who got the big graduation party with all the extended family invited, catered food, a DJ, and gifts? Tyler. When I graduated 2 years earlier with honors and several scholarship offers, we went to Olive Garden, just the 4 of us. And my dad complained about the prices the entire time, making pointed comments about the breadsticks and how expensive the pasta was. I remember sitting there thinking this was supposed to be my celebration, but somehow it still felt like a punishment. College was where things really crystallized for me, where I finally understood that this wasn't going to change, that this was how things would always be. I got into a decent state school with some scholarships, but I still needed to take out loans for the rest. My parents contributed exactly $0 to my education. You're smart, you'll figure it out, my dad said, when I asked if they could help at all. Besides, you've got that job at the store. You'll be fine. Tyler, on the other hand, had his entire college experience paid for by mom and dad. And not just tuition. They paid for his apartment, his meal plan, his textbooks, his car, his insurance, his gas money, his spending money, his furniture, his entertainment. Everything. Every single thing. He went to a private liberal arts college that cost 3 times what my state school did. When I questioned why Tyler got everything paid for and I got nothing, they called it an investment in his future because he'd been through so much and needed stability. What exactly had he been through? He was adopted as an infant from a nice middle-class family who couldn't afford another child after having 3 already. He grew up in a comfortable suburban home with parents who worshipped the ground he walked on, and a brother who was expected to sacrifice everything for him. Rough life, right? The kicker? Tyler dropped out after 3 years to find himself. Decided college wasn't his vibe, that the traditional education system was stifling his creativity, or some bullshit like that. My parents were understanding and supportive, told him to take all the time he needed, that it was brave to know when something wasn't right for you. Meanwhile, when I had to take 1 semester off due to mono, I was literally too sick to get out of bed for 2 weeks. My dad gave me this whole lecture about responsibility and finishing what you start and not being a quitter. I had to listen to him tell me that winners don't make excuses while I was running a 103-degree fever and could barely swallow water. That was fun. After college, I landed a decent job as a systems analyst at a mid-sized tech company. Nothing fancy, but it paid the bills and had good benefits. I got my own apartment, started building my life, bought furniture piece by piece from IKEA and Craigslist, cooked my own meals, paid my own bills, handled my own problems like an adult. Tyler bounced between jobs: barista, retail worker, delivery driver, restaurant server, movie theater usher. He'd quit every job after a few months because it was too stressful or not fulfilling, or the manager was toxic, or the hours didn't work for him. And where did he live during all of this? Back at home with mom and dad, rent-free, while they continued to fund his lifestyle and his never-ending journey of self-discovery. They paid for his car insurance, his cell phone, his food, his gas. Everything. He was living like a teenager at 25 years old. I'd be lying if I said it didn't eat at me. But I kept my distance, built my own life, and tried not to think about it too much. I figured eventually Tyler would grow up. My parents would realize they'd been enabling him to his detriment, and things would somehow balance out. Maybe not fair, but at least balanced. I was wrong. I was so incredibly wrong. The lottery win happened 6 weeks ago on a completely ordinary Saturday. I'm not a regular gambler. I maybe buy a ticket twice a year when the jackpot gets big enough to make headlines and people at work start talking about it. This particular Saturday, I stopped at a gas station on my way home from the gym and bought a single ticket. $5 for a daydream, you know? That's all it was supposed to be. A fantasy to think about while I was doing meal prep for the week. Tuesday night, I was eating leftover pizza and watching Netflix when I decided to check the numbers on my phone out of boredom. I checked them 3 times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Then I checked them 4 more times. Then I pulled up the official lottery website to make absolutely sure. Then I sat on my couch in complete silence for approximately 20 minutes trying to process reality. I'd won $8.2 million. Not enough to make me a billionaire or buy a yacht or anything insane like that, but enough to completely change my life. After taxes, I'd walk away with somewhere around $4.8 million. I could pay off my student loans, buy a house, invest the rest, and never have to worry about money again. I could quit my job if I wanted to, though I liked my job well enough to probably keep it. I could travel. I could breathe. I could finally stop worrying about money. I didn't tell anyone for almost a week. I consulted with a financial advisor, a lawyer, and a tax specialist first. I wanted to make sure I did everything right. I'd heard too many horror stories about lottery winners who ended up broke within a few years because they made stupid decisions or trusted the wrong people or got taken advantage of by family members who saw them as ATMs. I was going to be smart about this. Strategic. Careful. The plan was simple and responsible. Pay off my debts, about $40,000 in student loans, buy a modest house, thinking $350,000 range. Put $500,000 in liquid savings for emergencies. Invest the bulk of the rest in index funds and bonds for long-term growth. And maybe keep $200,000 to have fun with. Travel. Hobbies. Whatever I wanted. Responsible but not overly conservative. A plan that would set me up for life if I didn't do anything stupid. I told my best friend Jake first. We've been friends since college, roommates for 2 years, and he's one of the few people I trust completely. He was genuinely happy for me, gave me some good advice about staying grounded and not changing who I am, and joked that I should buy him a beer to celebrate. I bought him a bottle of nice scotch instead, which we shared while watching basketball and not making a big deal out of it. just two friends celebrating quietly. Then I made the catastrophic mistake of telling my parents. I invited them over for dinner at my apartment the following Sunday. I made lasagna from scratch, got some decent wine, set the table nicely with actual cloth napkins. I even cleaned my apartment more thoroughly than I had in months. I was actually excited to share the news. In my stupid, naive brain, I thought maybe this would be a turning point. Maybe they'd finally be proud of me. Maybe they'd see that I'd made something of myself despite their neglect. Maybe, just maybe, they'd treat me like I mattered for once in my life. I should have known better. I really should have known better. They arrived right on time. Tyler wasn't with them, thank God. I don't think I could have handled telling all three of them at once. Small talk was pleasant enough at first. Mom asked about work. Dad commented on a football game he'd watched the day before. Standard stuff. We sat down to eat, and I decided to just rip the Band-Aid off. No point in building up to it. So, I have some news, I said, trying to sound casual. Something pretty big happened. Mom perked up immediately. Oh? Did you get promoted? Better than that, I said. I won the lottery. Dead silence. They both stared at me like I'd just told them I was moving to Mars or joining a cult or had decided to become a professional clown. You won what? Dad said slowly, like he hadn't heard me correctly. The lottery. The Powerball drawing from last week. I won $8.2 million. More silence. Then my mom let out this weird, high-pitched laugh. You're joking. This is a joke, right? I'm not joking. I've already met with lawyers and financial advisors. After taxes, I'll have about $4.8 million. My dad's face did this complicated journey through several emotions. Shock, disbelief, what might have been happiness for about 3 seconds, and then something else. Something calculating. Something that made my stomach turn. That's incredible, Liam, Mom said, but her voice was strange. Tight. Off. What are you going to do with it all? I explained my plan. Pay off debts, buy a house, invest most of it, keep some for fun. They nodded along, but I could tell they were both thinking something. I just didn't know what yet. The dinner conversation became stilted and weird after that. They kept exchanging these looks. We finished with awkward small talk about nothing important. They left shortly after, claiming they were tired and had an early morning. I thought the whole thing was anticlimactic and kind of disappointing, but whatever. At least they knew. At least I'd shared my good news with them. I tried to feel good about it. The real shit started 2 days later. Dad called and asked if he could come by after work. Said he wanted to discuss something important, and that it couldn't wait. I said sure, figuring he wanted to give me some fatherly advice about money management or investing or something helpful like that. Maybe recommend his financial guy or something. He showed up at 6 p.m. sharp, walked in, declined my offer of a beer, and sat down at my kitchen table with this serious expression I'd rarely seen. It was his "I'm about to tell you something you won't like" face, the one he'd used before grounding me as a kid. Liam, I've been thinking a lot about your lottery win, he started. It's an incredible opportunity, and I'm genuinely happy for you. But I think we need to have a serious conversation about what you're going to do with that money. I already told you my plan, I said, confused about where this was going. Right, yes, but I don't think you've fully thought through all your responsibilities here. Your obligations. Responsibilities? The word hung in the air between us like a threat. Dad leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. Liam, you have a family, and I think it's only fair that you share this windfall with the people who raised you, who sacrificed for you, who made you the man you are today. We gave you everything. I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of the statement was too much. You want me to give you money? Don't make it sound so crass, he said, frowning. I'm talking about taking care of your family. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. This would help us retire comfortably. And more importantly, Tyler really needs help right now. He's struggling. Of course. Of course this was about Tyler. It was always about Tyler. Everything was always about Tyler. Tyler's an adult, I said, feeling my blood start to simmer. He's 26 years old. He can get a job like everyone else. He's trying, Dad said defensively. It's not easy out there. The job market is tough, and you know he's had a harder time than most people. He needs some stability, some security. This money could change his life. It's changing my life, I said, feeling my blood pressure rising. I want it. It's mine. I get to decide what to do with it. That's how lottery winnings work. But you don't need all of it, Dad pressed, like he was making a perfectly reasonable argument. You're already established. You have a good job. You're responsible with money. You've got your shit together. Tyler needs this more than you do. Think about what this could do for him. He could get his own place, Maybe start that business he's been talking about. What business? I interrupted. Tyler's never mentioned wanting to start a business to me, not once. Well, he's been thinking about it. He's got ideas. The point is, he deserves a chance to make something of himself, and this money could give him that chance. The chance he's never had. I sat back in my chair, completely stunned by the audacity. Let me get this straight. You want me to give Tyler money from my lottery winnings because he deserves a chance? Where was my chance when I was paying my own way through college? Where was my chance when I was working 40 hours a week while taking a full course load? Where was my chance when I got sick and you lectured me instead of helping me? Dad's face hardened. That's different. You were always the strong one. Tyler needs more support. He's more sensitive, more vulnerable. He needs help. Tyler's had nothing but support his entire life. You've given him everything, and he's pissed it all away. Every opportunity, every advantage, wasted. Don't you dare talk about your brother like that, Dad snapped, pointing his finger at me. You have no idea what it's like for him. You have no idea how hard it is being adopted, feeling like you don't belong. And you have no idea what it was like for me, I shouted. Do you have any concept of how it felt to watch you pour everything into Tyler while treating me like I was an obligation? Do you understand how much that fucked me up? How much therapy I've needed? How many times I've questioned my self-worth because my own parents couldn't be bothered to care about me? Oh, here we go, Dad said, rolling his eyes. The victim routine. Liam, you've always been jealous of Tyler. And frankly, it's embarrassing at your age. You need to grow up. That's when I lost it. Not yelling, not throwing things. I just went cold. Ice cold. The kind of cold that comes from finally seeing the truth clearly. Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Get out of my apartment. This conversation is over. We're not finished discussing this. We need to... Yes, we are. There's nothing to discuss. This is my money. I'm not giving any of it to you. I'm not giving any of it to Tyler. And I'm sure as hell not giving any of it to a family that's treated me like shit for 26 years. Now get out before I throw you out. Dad stood up, his face red with anger. You're being selfish and ungrateful. After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me? I demanded, standing to face him. Seriously, what? You fed me and housed me until I was 18? Congratulations. That's the legal minimum requirement for being a parent. You want a medal for not being criminally negligent? We gave you a good life, Dad said. We raised you right. We gave you values. We taught you how to be a man. You raised Tyler right. You raised me at all. There's a difference, a huge difference. Now get the fuck out of my apartment. He left, slamming the door behind him hard enough to rattle the pictures on my wall and probably piss off my neighbors. I thought that would be the end of it. I genuinely believed we'd just stop talking and move on with our separate lives. That we'd maybe see each other at holidays and keep things civil but distant. I was so incredibly wrong. The next day, Mom called. Then Tyler called. Then Dad called again. Then extended family started calling. Aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew and hadn't talked to in years. Apparently, my parents had launched a full-scale campaign to paint me as a selfish asshole who was abandoning his poor adopted brother in his time of need. They were working the phones like politicians. The story they were spreading was that Tyler had a great business opportunity, but needed capital to get started, and I was refusing to help him, despite having millions of dollars. They made it sound like I was Scrooge McDuck, sitting on a dragon's hoard of gold while Tyler starved in the streets, homeless and desperate. They made me the villain in a story where I was actually the victim. I ignored most of the calls, but I did answer when my Aunt Carol phoned. She was my mom's sister, and we'd always gotten along okay. She was one of the few family members who seemed to see me as an actual person. She started with the gentle approach. Liam, honey, I heard about your lottery win. That's wonderful news. Congratulations. Thanks, Aunt Carol. Your parents are pretty upset, though. They say you won't help Tyler out. That doesn't sound like you. That's not what's happening, I said. They want me to give Tyler a huge chunk of my winnings. Dad didn't specify an amount at first, but I'm guessing it's substantial. Way more than just helping out. Well, I mean, Tyler is your brother. Don't you want to help him succeed? Carol, let me ask you something. If you won the lottery, would you give most of it away to someone who'd been favored over you your entire life? Someone who's never worked for anything, never suffered a real consequence, and whose parents paid for everything while you got nothing? Would you? Silence on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, thinking, processing. I didn't think so, I said. Look, I'm not a monster, but I'm also not a bank, and I'm not going to fund Tyler's lifestyle just because my parents think I should. That's not my responsibility. It never was. Carol sighed deeply. I hear what you're saying. Your parents definitely played favorites. Everyone could see that. Everyone in the family knew. But maybe this is a chance to be the bigger person? To show them what real family looks like? Why do I always have to be the bigger person? I asked. Why can't Tyler be the bigger person and get his shit together? Why can't my parents be the bigger people and apologize for 26 years of treating me like an afterthought? Why is it always on me to fix things? Why am I always the one who has to sacrifice? She didn't have an answer for that. The call ended awkwardly, with her saying she loved me but needed to think about things. The harassment continued for another week. My dad left increasingly angry voicemails, his voice getting louder and more aggressive with each one. Tyler sent me long text messages about how I was ruining his life and how he'd always looked up to me, news to me, and how could I be so cruel to him when he needed me most. Mom tried the guilt trip angle, talking about family loyalty and how disappointed she was in me, and how she didn't raise me to be this selfish. She sent me pictures from when we were kids, trying to remind me of better times. I blocked all of them, changed my number, and only gave the new one to people I actually trusted. Then things escalated in a way I never saw coming. My parents showed up at my apartment unannounced one evening around 7 p.m. I made the mistake of answering the door, thinking it might be a delivery or one of my neighbors. They pushed their way in before I could stop them. Dad's face was set in that expression he'd get when he was about to lay down the law, like when I was a kid and he was about to ground me for something. Mom looked like she'd been crying, which I suspected was performance art designed to manipulate me. We need to settle this, Dad announced, standing in my living room like he owned the place. We're not leaving until we do. Then I'll call the police for trespassing, I said, pulling out my phone and actually dialing 911. Don't be ridiculous, Mom said. We're your parents. We're not trespassing. This is family business. Put the phone down. You are when I don't want you here. Leave now, or I'm making the call. I'm not kidding. Dad held up his hands in a placating gesture. Fine. Let's all calm down. We just want to talk. Have a reasonable conversation about this situation like adults. Just hear us out. There's nothing to talk about. There's plenty to talk about, Dad said. Liam, your mother and I have discussed this at length, and we've come up with what we think is a fair solution. A compromise that works for everyone. We're asking that you give Tyler 75% of your winnings. I actually laughed. A real, genuine laugh of disbelief. 75%? Are you out of your fucking mind? Hear me out, Dad continued, like he was being totally reasonable. You keep 25%, which is still over $1 million after taxes. That's more than enough for you to pay off your debts and buy a nice house. More than most people ever have. Tyler gets 75%, which he desperately needs to start his life over, to get on his feet, to finally have a chance. It's the fair thing to do. How is that even remotely fair? In what universe is that fair? Tyler deserves it more, Dad said flatly, like he was stating an obvious fact. He's had a harder life than you. He needs this money more than you do. You're already successful. You already have everything. You don't need millions of dollars. Tyler does. He deserves this chance. I won it. It's mine. Tyler's had every advantage handed to him his entire life while I had to fight for scraps. And you want me to give him 3/4 of my money because he deserves it more? Based on what? Based on the fact that you love him more? Based on the fact that he's your brother, Mom said, her voice trembling with what I'm sure she thought was emotion. Based on the fact that family takes care of each other. Based on the fact that you've always had it easier than Tyler, and you're too selfish to admit it. You've always been the lucky one. That's when something broke inside me. The last thread of hope that maybe, somewhere deep down, my parents actually loved me, snapped clean in half. I've had it easier, I said, my voice deadly calm. Let me tell you how easy I've had it. When Tyler wanted karate lessons, you paid for a full year up front. When I wanted to join too, you said we couldn't afford it. When Tyler went to college, you paid for everything. Tuition, housing, food, car, insurance, spending money. I got nothing. Not a dime. When Tyler dropped out, you supported him. When I took one semester off because I was literally too sick to function, you lectured me about responsibility. When Tyler got a B on a test, you celebrated. When I got straight A's, you said I should have studied harder to get that scholarship money. That's not, Mom started. I'm not finished, I cut her off. Tyler lives with you rent-free at 26 years old. I moved out at 18 and never asked you for a cent. Tyler's never held a job for more than 4 months. I've been continuously employed since I was 15. Tyler's entire existence has been subsidized by you two, while you've treated me like I'm lucky you kept me around. You've spent probably $200,000 on Tyler in the past 8 years alone. I've gotten nothing but criticism and disappointment. And now I win money. My money that I won with my dollar, that I earned through my luck. And you want me to hand 75% of it to Tyler because he deserves it more? Because he needs it more? Where was Tyler when I needed anything? You're twisting everything, Dad said. You're making us sound like terrible parents when we've done nothing but love both of you. I'm stating facts. Facts you've both been in denial about for 26 years. You adopted Tyler, and that's great. I'm genuinely glad you did. But you didn't need to destroy me in the process. You didn't need to treat me like I was worthless, just to make him feel valued. You could have loved both of us. Other families do it. Why couldn't you? We never treated you like you were worthless, Mom protested, tears streaming down her face. Real ones this time, I think. We love you. We've always loved you. Really? Name one time, just one time, in the past 10 years where you celebrated my achievements the way you celebrate Tyler's mediocrity? One time where you made me feel like I mattered as much as he does. Silence. Long, damning silence that told me everything I needed to know. That's what I thought. Now get the hell out of my apartment and don't come back. Ever. If you don't share that money with your brother, you're not our son anymore, Dad said, playing his final card, his trump card, the ultimate threat. You'll be dead to us. I looked him dead in the eye without flinching. I haven't been your son since the day you brought Tyler home. I've just been too stupid to accept it until now. Leave, now, before I call the police. They left. Mom was sobbing. Dad was rigid with anger. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. I locked the door behind them, sat down on my couch, and felt nothing. Just emptiness where my family used to be. It should have hurt more. The fact that it didn't hurt much at all told me everything I needed to know about our relationship. The next few days were a blur. Tyler tried showing up at my work, but security escorted him out when he started yelling in the lobby about how I'd stolen his future and was ruining his life. He made a scene. People were staring. My company's HR department had to get involved, and I filed a restraining order with help from an attorney. Tyler was banned from company property. My parents' campaign ramped up to insane levels. They went to my neighbors, telling them I was heartless. They went to people I went to high school with, people I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. They went to anyone who would listen. They painted me as a greedy, heartless person who'd abandoned his disadvantaged brother. Some people bought it, some people didn't. I lost a few acquaintances who believed their version without asking for mine. I didn't care. They weren't real friends anyway. My friend Jake recorded one of my dad's rants at a local coffee shop and sent it to me. Dad was sitting at a table with 3 other people, telling them about how he'd raised an ungrateful son who won millions and wouldn't share a penny with his poor adopted brother, who'd been through so much trauma and needed help to get started in life. He made himself sound like a saint and me sound like a monster. That's when I decided to fight back. Really fight back. I made a Facebook post. I rarely use social media, maybe check it once a month, but I knew this would get around, would spread, would reach everyone who needed to see it. I detailed everything. The favoritism, the unequal treatment, the financial disparities, all of it. I included specifics. Amounts paid for Tyler's education versus mine, 0 versus $120,000 plus dollars. The different standards we were held to, the pattern of enabling versus neglect. I explained the lottery win and my parents' demand that I give Tyler 75% of it because he deserves it more. I ended the post with, I don't owe anyone an explanation for what I do with my money. But since my parents have decided to publicly smear me and lie about our family history, here are the facts. All of them. I'm not the villain in this story. I'm just the son who finally got tired of being treated like he doesn't matter. This is my money, my life, and my choice. I'm done apologizing for existing. The post went nuclear. Within 24 hours, it had been shared over 500 times. Family members started reaching out, some to apologize for believing my parents' lies, some to share their own stories of the favoritism they'd witnessed over the years, some to tell me they'd always thought my parents' treatment of me was wrong, but didn't know what to say or how to help. My mom's sister Carol called me crying and apologizing. She said she'd always noticed the difference in how my parents treated us but thought it was just their way, and didn't realize how deep it went, how damaging it was, how much it had hurt me. She apologized for not speaking up. Several cousins sent messages saying they were cutting off my parents until they apologized to me and made things right. My parents' church friends started distancing themselves. The narrative they'd built crumbled in the face of decades of evidence from people who'd witnessed the favoritism firsthand. Turns out everyone had noticed. Everyone had known. They'd just been too polite to say anything, too uncomfortable to intervene. No one wanted to tell my parents they were shitty parents. Tyler deleted all his social media accounts after people started calling him out in the comments, calling him entitled and spoiled and a leech. My parents went radio silent, stopped posting, stopped calling, stopped everything. 3 weeks after the blow-up, I got a letter from a law firm. My parents were actually trying to sue me for a portion of the lottery winnings, claiming they were entitled to it based on some bullshit theory about family contribution to my development. Something about how they'd invested in me and deserved a return. My lawyer laughed when I showed him the letter and told me the case would be thrown out immediately, which it was. The judge apparently gave my parents' attorney a fairly harsh lecture about wasting the court's time with frivolous lawsuits and how family drama doesn't constitute a legal claim. My parents sent a few more letters through attorneys, all of which went nowhere. Tyler apparently moved out of my parents' house and is living with friends now, probably because mom and dad can't afford to support him anymore without my money to fund their retirement and his lifestyle. I heard he's working at a Target now. Good for him, I guess. I heard through the grapevine that they're struggling financially. They'd apparently been planning to retire this year, but can't now, because they spent their retirement savings supporting Tyler's unemployed lifestyle. Part of me feels bad about that. A very small part. The rest of me remembers 26 years of being the spare child and feels absolutely nothing. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.